Welcome. I am Captain Crazy.
And I'm Princess.
And this is our RWBY review for Volume 4, Chapter 3.
Of Runaways and Stowaways.
Bit of a different tone to this episode. A little bit more of the sad, dreary, misery type, but then there's also some levity and humor, and absolutely no Ruby or Weiss. So my prediction last week was completely wrong, other than we did see a lot of Blake in this one.
So excited that we got to see Blake and Yang finally. Yay.
If you missed last week's RWBY review, at the end of it I stated my prediction was that it would be Weiss-centric probably about the first half, and then at the end we'd see Blake, kind of like we did with Weiss at the very first episode, to try to introduce her. But it looks like they've kind of just sliced off the end of Weiss's, and we'll get it later. And we get to see a lot of Blake and a little bit of Yang and a little bit of the Evil League of Evil.
My prediction for next week is RWBY. What's your prediction?
I have no clue. We're definitely going to see more Yang. We're probably going to wrap up Weiss, and yeah, there'll probably be some RWBY, because you can't have more than one episode in a row without RWBY, and it's called RWBY.
It's called Team RWBY, though. With a W.
Doesn't matter. When the main character and the leader has the same name, just spelt differently. So yes, like I said, a little bit of a darker, kind of depressed tone. Obviously with the Yang part, no arm, trying to cope with that. A little bit of PTSD there. And then some levity between
Sun and Blake.
Yes.
I found that it was a lot less forced than it was like with Yon and Team Ranger.
Yeah.
It seemed more authentic.
Yeah, it was more of a natural humor between them versus, it's forced in just to have it be there. It was, I think they are very kindred spirity, Blake and Sun. Yeah, I know, me and names. So Blake and Sun have an affinity, and just that kind of shorthand between them that, then they have since basically the first time they met, because she went off and talked to him for a few days. What was it, episode 2 of the entire series? Was it episode 3, 4?
It's close
on the
to
docks.
The end.
It was close to the end?
Closer to the end. End chapters.
Well, ignore me then. So let's get into the episode. It starts off with Blake on a boat, and she just kind of looking off, and what appears to be the captain of the ship off the beginning, and it later on turns out to be the captain of the ship. At first it's hard to tell, because it's either the captain or just some lunatic that likes to dress up in a sailor's outfit. You never know. There's those people. I'm on a cruise ship, so I'm going to be all captainy and sailory and wear the stupid goofy hat thing and No? Maybe I've watched too many movies. So, moving on.
I automatically assumed it was the captain right away.
Moving on. So, the captain approaches Blake and just kind of starts to strike up a conversation, stating that...
Blake is very skittish, though.
Yes, very paranoid, skittish. And the captain does point this out. And she's like, well, basically, why are you talking to me? Well, because people that sail by themselves typically have the more interesting things to say. They have a more interesting story. Mm-hmm. So he tries to get a little bit out of her, and she's basically having none of it other than to be extremely skittish, considering she jumped as soon as he talked to her, and then screaming kids run by, children, and both times she jumped. So very, very skittish. So yes, the captain strikes him up a little bit of the conversation, then leaves, and afterwards she kind of says to herself that she doesn't need the bow anymore. So she removes the bow, throws it into the water, and we cut to Yang.
But I like how that, she's accepting more of herself. She's trying not to hide herself anymore. So she's going someplace where she feels safe enough to be herself. I said herself a lot.
Yeah. So we learn later on in the episode that she's actually going home. To her homeworld of it sounds like she says menagerie and it sounds like Sun says menagerie, and if I know my French, a menagerie is kind of like a petting zoo, and they're faunus. I might be totally off base there because my French is very rusty, but we'll put a little disclaimer after we do our fact check if it's wrong. Right. So yes, they're going home, or she's going home, so if she's going to a place that she already know has a lot of faunus, and they already know she is a faunus, there's no point in hiding the ears, so she removes the ribbon and throws it into the...
She's going someplace safe.
Exactly. So then we cut to Yang.
And you see Yang in her day-to-day life, very tired, very lacking of energy to do anything overly productive. Like, she does do few chores, like gets the mail, sweeps the floor, but she's also watching the news and, just flicking through aimlessly and not really anything overly productive being done. She stops on the channel where they talk about Adam, because Adam was the one who chopped off her arm. You can see her kind of panic a bit at even just seeing a picture of him. Then later you see her washing the dishes, she drops one, and then she just freaks out and gets flashbacks of the event.
Yeah, she sees the symbol that's on his visor, and literally just stops dead in her tracks, and her father sees that episode, and a little bit earlier on, he actually gave her a state-of-the-art Atlas robotic type, I guess, I don't know, this series version of Automail. Essentially, this series version of Automail. To which Yang doesn't really seem to want to wear it. She says, I'm not feeling very well, and maybe later. And so you can kind of see the defeat in her face, and then the distress in the father, because he has no idea
how to fix the problem.
Exactly. It's not one of those things you can just fix. Time heals it. You got to say the right thing at the right time, because any little thing could just trigger an incident. Mm-hmm.
She's not ready to go back into the fight. She's just not even ready to look at anything to start with that.
Oh, and the father had said that he had thought he'd have to pull some strings to be able to get this technology in this arm, and that the general had already started his top researchers or engineers on designing it. And Princess has a great theory in which they basically just used the spare parts from Penny, who, well, she's chopped in half anyway. And doesn't
I
really
mentioned that offhand as a joke. It's not a theory. It would be too cruel.
I don't know, just...
Parts of Penny, in her arm.
Yeah. I don't know. Seemed plausible to me.
It's plausible, it just doesn't mean it happened.
So that's basically all we get with Yang. You can just see the defeat in Yang, and she wants to do things just with the one arm. She regrets losing the arm. She wants to be able to use that arm, but does not want a foreign aid of any type.
So, do you think that she will ever use the arm that was gotten from Ironwood? Or do you think that she'll make do with just the one arm? Or do you think that there'll be some other option?
I think that we'll go at least one more episode. There will be a fight that she can't win, and she will put the arm on and use it, and it won't be the most eloquent of a fight after that, but I think it'll give her just enough to be able to defeat whatever comes along.
I have to agree with that theory. I think that's what's going to happen as well.
I'm almost thinking that there's going to be a Grimm that is stalking around. Dad'll be nearby. He'll be watching the whole thing, but he'll let her fight it and kind of get her butt kicked a little bit, and then maybe she'll put it on, or maybe he'll take that one out, and then basically, point out that she needs to put that bloody arm on because she needs to be able to defend herself.
Or get hurt on purpose. The father get hurt on purpose so that she has cause to act.
Yeah. Another highly plausible theory.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Yang bit, we cut back to Blake. And she sees a hooded figure, which later turns out to be a son.
Mm-hmm.
And a giant Leviathan-type Grimm.
Friggin' awesome design. I love it.
It comes out of the ocean or the lake. It's hard to tell whether or not it's lake or ocean.
I think it's ocean.
Yeah, it's just they're really close to land as well, so it's hard to tell. But yeah, ocean would make sense considering the size of that monster. So it comes out, and Blake then proceeds to start fighting it, and
Sun joins in.
Yeah, and so they fight. And we see
fight.
more of
They fight.
both of their semblances. So I think this is the first time we've seen Sun's semblance.
Might have seen it in the tournament. I can't remember though.
And it seems to be like almost Thunder clone jutsu. That's the best way I can think to describe it, where he can summon up to three clones, and they work independently of himself, and they're essentially made of lightning. And they can zap the enemy, and they can also touch allies without actually harming them, so they seem to have at least a little bit of an amount of control over what they zap. So they fight along, and there's some comedic moments where she catches Sung after he's about to get eaten, essentially, and then drops him on his ass.
But before he says, "My hero."
And then later on,
when
he catches her
the same way that.
And I believe it was something like.
This is the part where you say.
And she goes, which is exactly what she said when he said "my hero" and she dropped him on his ass. And at that exact moment that she said "ha," the Leviathan came crashing into the rocks, and they had to scurry up out.
It's like, okay, maybe later.
We get to see a little bit of the technology on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Very much like a old pirate ship with the war galleys, with the many small cannons sticking out the side of the boat. So they kind of defend themselves with that.
So they are prepared for Grimm attacks. It's not an uncommon event when crossing the waters then.
They had just never seen a Grimm this large, or anywhere close to this large.
Yeah.
And didn't know if they could take it on. Once it sprouted wings, their cannons had a very hard time tracking them, and little accuracy was something that nimble. So they asked Blake and Sung to clip its wings a little bit, which they do, and they kind of draw it along, and when it stops to fire, it's...
Seto?
Lightning Seto, yeah. When it tries to fire its lightning Seto at them, they skewer it with the giant ramming rod piercing spike
at the front of the boat.
Yeah, and then blast it with their heavy cannon, and it takes the head clean off of it. Yeah, and then she explains then to Sun that she is going home, and he kind of asks her, well, why isn't your team with you for this? And she basically retorts, where's your team? They're not hiding out under deck, are they? And
she says that there's also some things that she has to take care of first.
Yeah.
Our theory is that she's going home to get maybe some more training with her old mentors or family members, and then go after the White Fang, hopefully.
Yeah, in the intro or the end scene, I can't remember which, it shows her with what looks to be like an older sister. So I'm thinking that
Looks more like a younger sister.
she's taller.
I'm taller than my sister, and I'm the youngest.
What I think is the older sister, and
I think it's the younger sister.
definitely looks older. So I think she's going home to get training from her so that she can be a more.
I think it'd be more from the bigger guy in behind. I think that's going to be like the master or the father to train.
Also a possibility. But yeah, that's essentially all with Blake. Most of the stuff with Blake, other than a little bit of banter between her and Sung, was essentially the fight with the Leviathan Grim creature.
Awesome fight.
Yes, awesome fight. We see a little bit of her semblance. Actually, we only see it once.
Yeah.
And then just how she uses her weapons and whatnot at this point. We also see her with a new outfit. It's
a nicer outfit. I actually like that outfit better than the first one.
kind of like a long coat, black pants, and this black halter top strappy thing. Was there a better way to describe that?
It's good enough.
Halter top strappy thing. I'm not a fashion guru. I won't pretend to be, but yeah. So halter top strappy thing.
We'll go with that, sure.
Yes. So we then skip back to the Evil League of Evil
Headquarters.
Yes, Evil League of Evil headquarters, also known as.
Also known as what?
Who's the person?
Salem?
Yeah, that's it. Salem's headquarters, and we see her kind of. It seems to be training with or trying to remove limitations from Cinder. My theory, because they don't really explain what she's doing, but
She's kind of like using her hand in the force, and I don't know.
And it kind of looks like she's trying to move that left arm that we don't ever see her do anything with, and she holds kind of tenderly in a few different moments. So I think it's some sort of thing like a rehabilitation with the arm, and she seems to be trying to move it, and Salem wants her to bend it to her will, and it can feel the trepidation and whatnot. So
My theory, though, based on somebody else's comments, but my theory is that it's actually kind of part of a Grim that she's just trying to control so she can have the movement again of her arm. So she has like a Grim maybe attached to the arm so that she can gain movement of it again. And so she has to try to control it.
Or it could be something like the Spectre that we saw. That could have been why we got that as the first Grim.
Grim, yeah.
So it could be like a Spectre-y type Grim that has fused with her to be able to allow her movement with that arm again.
I think that would be cool to have her have part of a Grim on her arm.
Yep. But there's definitely an issue with the arm because she doesn't use it ever. And it seems to be a chore just to be able to even shrug that shoulder at all, move it at all. And then next we see a sensory, I don't know, tracking droid looking Grim.
It looks like the droid from episode...
On Hoth.
On Hoth. I totally forgot the episode name.
Yeah, on Hoth.
It looks like the sensory droid from Hoth from Star Wars.
The Imperial Probe Droid.
There we go.
So it looks a little bit like that, except organic and like eyeball-y inside.
You see Mercury and Emerald there too, and they're just very on edge at this place. They're just not happy to be there, and everything is kind of giving them wide eyes and surprise, and they're just not sure why they're there right now by the looks of it.
So the sensory Grim kind of hovers over to Salem, and she seems to draw some information from it, and it brings her to question Cinder on whether or not she actually killed Ospin. So she goes to beckon Emerald over, and we see Salem's eyes flare red, and no, you're telling me...
Yourself.
I'm hearing it from your mouth, so you better say it. And she, after a struggle, manages to kind of, I don't know, rasp out a yes.
Yeah.
And you can see Salem kind of
relax a little bit after that, yeah.
And then says that the relic is somewhere in Beacon, and asks herself, kind of like out loud, what would you be what could you be planning? So
Who is she referring to?
So my theory is that Ospin is alive. Mm-hmm. Cinder thinks she killed Ospin, but Salem knows otherwise at this point.
I kind of have to concur with that.
And so
she's referring, I think, to Ospin in that dialogue to herself as well.
Yeah. And so my guess is this sensory Grim saw something that has now triggered Salem to think that Ospin is alive and that he is planning something to try to counter her.
Or is preventing her from getting said relic.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever this is.
And if Salem knows that this relic is in Beacon for certain, could she have been like one of the original founders?
Perhaps.
I don't know. It's a theory to think on.
Mm-hmm.
But really, that's all that happened in this episode. And like I said right off the beginning, it has very different tones. It has the hopelessness right through to the strength of Blake and Sun and their interactions with each other, and a little bit of the comedic levity shown through their interactions.
See, personally, I don't find it as hopeless as, like, with the Ruby and gang in the previous episodes. I found those a bit more depressing than this episode. Like I said, this episode, the humor in it seems more genuine and natural, whereas opposed the other ones it's more forced, and that's what helps, or that's what brings it down more too.
Yes.
So I got a very different feel from the episode.
Yeah, see, in the other episodes you got that hopelessness and it wouldn't go away at all. This episode you got a deeper hopelessness, but only for a short period of time, and then it balanced out with the rest of the episode that didn't feel like have that undertone of hopelessness.
I thought it was a better balanced episode though, because you have a lot more of the humor and you have the nice action balance with also then the story. Mm-hmm. So I like this episode a lot. I like this chapter a lot better than the second chapter of this volume.
Yeah, the second one, with it having absolutely zero action in a story that is driven a lot by the action. It does have a lot of character elements to it, but with the episodes getting longer, because they're all over the 15-minute mark at this point.
This one was 18 minutes long, this chapter.
With all of the ending and beginning credits, yeah. So you're looking at roughly 16 minutes. But considering a lot of the early episodes were 8 minutes, 10 minutes long, mm-hmm. Now that we're getting a almost proper TV show length, or approaching that, it needs to have the action, or else it's going to feel like it drags over that period. And the longer the episode gets, or the longer every episode starts to get, the more that is going to be influenced, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, final thoughts?
It's good music as well. Like, I found the music to really complement the action scenes. Again, I just think that this episode was better balanced than the previous chapter. I did it again.
Mm-hmm.
And
so this has been our RWBY review for Volume 4, Chapter 3. And until we see you next time, I am Captain Crazy.
And I'm Princess.
And until next week,
bye.
Ciao.